Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the MitsuTimes podcast. My guest today is Mr. John Lentz, the owner and driver of a very cool, very unique 3000 GT. How are you today, sir?
Oh, very good. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Thank you for joining me. I'm you know, obviously the 3000 GT, we don't get a lot of guests on. There's probably only, so many people still racing them, but not only do we get to have a 3000 GT owner, but you're also doing something a little bit different. So I love that.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique car. When people see them on the road as I'm driving by, they're always giving me the thumbs up, or sometimes
Nice.
they'll stop and say, "Hey, I used to have one of those. I remember those cars. It's really cool." So it's a lot of fun.
Well, John, let's get right into it. What is it that drew you to the 3000 GT platform in the first place?
Well, I always liked the look of the car. I was in college when they first came out. And I was immediately drawn to it. I liked it. I liked the body style, the way it looked, some of the cool technology on it at the time, like better than the other Japanese cars, the quote unquote Japanese supercars at the time. Um, when I was living in an apartment in college, and somebody had one at the apartment complex. And I would always look at it out the window and thought, I'm going to own one of those one of these days. And, sometime later in the decade, I ended up picking up one.
Your plan finally came together.
Yeah. Yep. It was, yeah. I mean, I had to graduate from college, save up some nickels, and then when I had the opportunity to finally get one, I finally picked one up.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, John, when you did pick this car up, what kind of condition was it in?
So yeah, I started looking for this car, I don't know, 97 or 98. So I went on Craigslist because that's what you did back then, and just searching for 3000 GTs. I saw this one and actually a Toyota Supra, which was a twin turbo version of that car. And I probably should have bought that one instead because, I have a $80,000 car now, um, but I saw this one. It was 94. It had less than 15,000 miles on it. And I had enough money to pay cash for it outright. And so I got a hold of the guy. He never drove it in the winter. He barely ever drove it in the rain. And that was only because, he would get caught in the rain. So it was always garage kept. Very little miles on it, and just immaculate condition. It smelled brand new on the inside too when I first bought it.
That's so
So
cool.
I yeah, met the guy, took it for a test drive, and then bought it right then and there. So I've owned it ever since 98. I've had it. And surprisingly, I've put very few miles on it myself. So I've also have never driven it in the winter. In the summers, the only time I ever drive it. It never sees wet unless I'm washing it, or I happen to get caught out in the rain myself. So as of right now, the car only has 39,000 miles on it.
No kidding.
Yep. So the engine is a different story, but yeah, the body, everything about it is, yeah, it might be almost 30 years old, but it's got around 39,000 miles on it.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
hmm Yeah, it's a really cool, like pearl white color too, so it looks really neat in the sunlight. That's
Yeah, I
another
love that
thing
color.
I like about it.
John, you kind of hinted at the engine, but let's talk about, what you got going under the hood, because that's another part that makes this car very unique.
Yeah, so the car is the front wheel drive version. So it only had the high compression 4G72 or 6G72, sorry. Um, so it made around 250 horsepower, and the twin turbo version made around 300. So I actually didn't, at the time when I bought it, I didn't think that was a big deal to me, because the car made, I think, around the same amount of horsepower as the Eclipses, the turbo Eclipses at the time. So, I didn't think anything of it. But, as the years went on, I was like, well, this car's actually not that fast anymore. So I decided, actually, I wanted to do this for a really long time, but because of, personal circumstances and my job and life and having kids and all that stuff. I didn't get around to doing this until just recently. But I did end up swapping in a 4G63 six bolt out of I don't know, it was a 91, 92 Mitsubishi Eclipse. So that's what I got in it now, is a turbo version of the 4G63.
I love that. Obviously, I love the 6G7 too, but the 4G63 is near and dear to my heart. So that's really awesome. So, what made you decide to swap to that? Was it just to get something with a little bit more power?
Yeah, so I like taking it to the track a lot, and I was just kind of getting dogged out there, wasn't accelerating, to my liking. I was kind of over it at that point. So yeah, I wanted to have more power in it. I wanted to go to a turbo engine. I could have put turbos onto the stock engine that I had, the 6072. But because it's really heavy in the front, and actually the twin turbo VR4 version of it is also more biased, weight biased towards the front. But on the front wheel drive cars, it's even worse. So this engine, the 4G63, was going to be a couple of 100 pounds lighter as well. So with that, more power, weight reduction, it was actually a lot cheaper to upgrade a 4G63. With the six cylinder, you have to do everything twice, right? You got to do two cylinder heads, two sets of camshafts, right? Like everything. So this was supposed to be a cheaper option to go down this road. So and there's a huge, huge market and following for the 4G63s, right? Like far bigger than the 6G72s. So um, so yeah, there was a lot there, a lot of motivation to go that route. A few people started doing it, making the switch. So I kind of learned from them, and then I had an opportunity to do it myself, and that's what I did.
Beautiful. Well, let's talk about your current setup. You talked about the engine a little bit, but let's talk about the specifics: engine, suspension, tires. What do you got going on that's really helping you out at these track days?
Um, so, all right. So I guess I'll give you a little story about the whole engine here first. So, um, I went online and to research or try to find a used engine. So I found one. It was $500. It came with an engine, the full engine and transmission, but it was in pretty rough shape. So I knew I had to rebuild it. Um, so I basically kept the transmission of this whole package because I can easily swap it over to, a new engine or a rebuilt engine. The 3000 GT transmission, it shares the same internals as the Mitsubishi Eclipse, the front wheel drive transmission, and I already had a Quaife differential in my 3000 GT transmission, so I just swapped that over to the Eclipse transmission, and everything worked out that way. So then I started researching, how much is this going to cost to rebuild this engine? And it ended up being cheaper if I just found an actual running engine that was built up already. So that's what I did. I kind of abandoned that engine, let it sit in pieces in my garage, and I bought a complete long block, and that was fully built out. It was built by a company, I think it's called F-Tech. They were in California, and I don't think they're around anymore, or they've moved on to other platforms. I'm not sure which. Um, but that was a fully built engine. It was capable of supporting like 800 horsepower. So I figured, well, there we go. I'll just get into that, right? So I bought that and swapped it out in my car. So after then I decided, well, I'm just going to go tune it. I was trying to find somebody to tune it for me, but it's really hard in Michigan. That's where I'm from, to find somebody with a dyno that could actually tune with the computer that I bought. And I ended up buying a Megasquirt computer. And I didn't know this, but a lot of people have moved on from that computer. So nobody's like supporting it anymore. So then I took it upon myself to try to tune it. And I failed spectacularly. I ended up blowing up that engine out on the track. So first time I took it to the track, I made it a few laps around and I blew holes through two of the pistons. So it turned out I had the timing a little bit too far advanced. So then I go back to the old engine. Well, actually, I took that engine and the block from that first engine I bought, and I dropped it off at Busher Racing. So I'm sure you're familiar with them. They've been around forever, since the early 90s. So the the built engine that I had, it was already bored over too much, and they told me that they had to sleeve it, which is going to be extra. So I said, forget that. Just take the other block that I gave them. That wasn't touched yet, so they ended up cleaning up that block completely and building that one up for me. So this engine now, it has Manly extreme duty pistons, Manly I-beam tough rods, ACL bearings, ARP main studs. It has a Kigley girdle in it. I had them baffle the oil pan to make sure that oil isn't leaving and starving the block, during high speed turns. The head is completely ported and polished. It has SuperTech oversized intake valves, Kigley springs, um, GSC S2 cams. It has a 3G lifters in it, skunk work adjustable cam gears, and a Kigley racing oil pressure regulator in the head. So that engine now is capable of supporting around 800 horsepower as well. So I got another fully built engine in there.
I'm gonna keep this one together.
Yeah. So this one I hired out tuning. So I got that done, which is why I'm talking to you right now.
So what about suspension? What are you doing to keep all the wheels on the ground for this track racing?
So I've got teen adjustable coilovers on there. The control arms in the rear are custom made. I made those, built them up myself using some end links and some I think there's swage bars, right? So where you screw the end links into. So I have those to adjust the camber and toe in the rear. It's got full poly bushings in all of the suspension points wherever the subframes tie into the frame. That's all poly bushings there. Um, the wheel and tire package is pretty big. I'm running 265 35 R18s on there with Anki PF 1 18 by 9.5 wheels. Let's see, the brakes too. That's another interesting thing. So uh, somebody out there makes a kit so to adapt Cadillac CTSV brakes. to the Eclipses, and it turns out that the 3000 GT shares the same front knuckles. Well, this is the front wheel drive version. Shares the same brakes system as the second generation Eclipses. So
No
I
kidding.
bought that set, and now I have Cadillac CTSV brakes up front, which
Very
is a
nice.
really cheap way to get into some Brembo brakes, by the way, because you could pick up each one of those for like 250. So,
Okay.
and they sell them on Summit Racing too. So that's another cool thing about it.
I didn't know that. Wow.
You know, so I got really good
Okay.
stopping power now.
So it sounds like you're doing most of this work on your own, other than the tuning and assembling the engine. You're doing all yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah. Everything I learned on my own, how to do it. I do a bunch of research on it. Try to find the best parts, go to all the major Mitsubishi part suppliers, right? I've gone on the forums, the DSM forums, there's the 3000 GT and Stealth forums as well. Just trying to, absorb everything and pick up as much as I can. Of course, there's YouTube, right? You gotta go to school watching YouTube videos as well. I like learning and figuring things out. And it turns out I'm not too shabby at doing mechanical work. So everything was done, yeah, by myself, except for building the engine. I don't have the tools and really the knowledge on how to do that. And I just took it to the pros and to have them do it for me. And then tuning, I discovered that's a weak point in my skill set. So I hired Performance Destination to help me out with remote tuning. And he did a fantastic job with that.
Good, good, good.
One other unique thing about this setup that I have that I thought I would mention is that I've got a 6-bolt engine, and I've mated it to a second generation transmission, Eclipse transmission. And in that combination, you can't run a jack shaft. And I wanted to run a jack shaft, so I had equal length axles in the front. So, and the reason why you can't is because the spline count is different. So, you can buy jack shafts, but the spline count is smaller than the spline count in the differential on the second generation Eclipse differentials.
Okay.
So, not to be deterred in that, I found a company. They're Dutchman Axles. They're in Idaho, and actually, they will do custom axles for anything, any car whatsoever. Go check them out. Check out their website, and there's a whole process to go through to have them do custom work for you. They want a bunch of measurements. They want you to send some parts in so they get the spline, geometry correct. But really cool. So I found them and I sent them parts, and they made me a custom jack shaft to work in this application. So now I can adapt a second gen transmission on this first gen block, and have my equal length axles in the front there. So, and this jack shaft too, this thing was like a work of art, and they did a phenomenal job with it. We made up a drawing for it. It's the exact same dimensions um, on the Eclipse side and the exact same dimensions on the 3000 GT side. So they just, kind of married those two splines together, and machined out a jack shaft, and it works perfectly now. It's great.
Well, that's really awesome that somebody was able to fill that little gap you had.
Yeah, I manage engineering programs for a living, so to me, it wasn't like too difficult to try to find somebody, suppliers to do some of these kinds of things. So I was just a little persistent. It took a little bit. I mean, this whole jack shafts uh, journey was probably 4 or 5 months long because I thought I would actually build one myself. I took two jack shafts and I cut them in half and tried to weld them together, but it had too much run out in it and it was kind of binding. So I didn't want that. So I just pulled it out and I did some more research and found this place and sent them a drawing and, like I said, parts, and they turn it around for me actually pretty quickly.
Okay, awesome. I'll
So,
definitely have to check them out.
yeah.
So you talked about doing taking this to some track days. How did you get started in autocross and track days?
Well, so I always loved motorsports and car racing. And I had this car, and I thought, well, I wonder how I can get this car now into some, sanctioned racing events or something like that. Then I discovered how much that ends up costing. So I'm like, oh man, that's a bit steep for me because I had a new family, just starting off in life here too. So I didn't think that was going to go over well. But I discovered autocross, and that was actually a pretty cheap way to get in some kind of racing. So I actually did autocross for a few years. Um, and, that was fun, right? You get to learn how to be pretty technical with driving. I won, a bunch of events in my class that I ran in. But the thing that I didn't quite like about it was you stand outside like all day long in this blazing heat only to drive your car for, a couple of minutes, right, during the day. Um, and then I discovered track days, these open track days where you just take your car to these road courses and, go beat on your car for a whole day. And they usually have like 4 or 5 20-minute sessions. So then I started to get into that, and I really like that a lot. So I, started, modifying my car then over the years to handle the rigors of going out on road courses because that is actually pretty hard on your car. Um, you've got you got to manage your brakes, tires get eaten up a lot faster. It's actually not too good on the body of your car. A lot of people tape up their cars to, protect the paint. And
Right.
unfortunately, the paint on my car has gotten a little beat up over the years. So I'm taking them to the track days, um, but yeah, it's a lot more demanding on your car. And that's why I've been kind of evolving it too over all these years, so I can, make it more reliable on the track. So, but I love being out on the road course, a lot more than doing the autocross thing.
Well, when you are out on the course, what's your favorite thing about driving this car?
It's really interesting how driving your car at the limits on these tracks. One wrong move and you can spin yourself out or go off into the grass. I've done that a couple of times. Thankfully, I never hit any walls or anything. But that's like really interesting to me is to figure that out, and figure out what the limits are of your car and of yourself and how much you can handle out there. And I don't know, I really like that part of it and learning how to be a better driver and learning about my car. Um, you know.
So, John, with the 4G63 in the 3000 GT, we normally think of the 3000 GT chassis as being a pretty heavy chassis. Have you noticed any unique handling characteristics with having the 4G63 in the 3000 GT, kind of cutting back on that weight a little bit?
Oh, yeah, the front end definitely feels a lot lighter. It understeers less now as well. Definitely acceleration is better. Well, I mean, it's makes way more horsepower than stock, so I mean, maybe that part was obvious, but it feels more nimble now. And my car is pretty lightweight, anyways. Before I did all this, it was like 2850 or 2860, something like that. Because I've stripped out a lot of the car, to make it more quote unquote race car like. So it was light, and putting this engine in there, I think saved another couple 100 pounds. So It's a lot more nimble now, that's for sure.
And then, John, I know we talk about on here sometimes with people who autocross or people who do track days. They talk about the kind of differences in the car setups. Do you set the car up differently for when you go to an autocross event as versus going to a track day?
Yeah, I think the big difference here is the track days they're so much longer, and you're beating on your car and taxing it for a lot, a longer duration, right? So brake pads are definitely one of the big things that I've had to change out. I run Hawk Blues in the front, so they can handle the heat and not fade on me. And the other thing is brake cooling. That's a huge thing too. I mean, I didn't have to worry about this stuff when I was autocrossing. I think I put like HPS Plus Hawk pads on the front there to give a little bit more bite, but I definitely didn't have to worry about the brakes overheating. The I've actually melted the seals out of the calipers before I added additional cooling to the brakes. So that was a big thing for sure. But then I play around with the camber too. I'm running -3 degrees in the front typically, and around 2 degrees, -2 degrees in the back, to make the car more flat and stable. Um, the the car handled pretty well on its own, and one of the big changes too to make the car handle flatter was putting in a bigger roll bar, or anti-roll bar in the back. That made it actually really run really flat, right? It doesn't have a lot of roll in it anymore. Plus the coilovers as well. Running them harder and having the car be lighter weight. It makes it a real stiff setup for me. So. And then on top of that, I've also added a 6-point roll bar in the car as well, so that made it even stiffer. So, um, it's a pretty stiff car, that's for sure, going around the track now at this point.
I bet. Sounds like a lot of fun already.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
So, John, you've been doing this for a little bit. What has been your most memorable run so far, either good or bad?
Well, I think I said earlier that I've won a couple of events during autocross. That's always fun, to win some things. Going to these events, either track days or autocrosses, there's super nice people there. It's like a car show, right? So you walk around and look at everybody else's cars and their setups, and lots of people come up to me and my car because it's unique now at this point, being almost 30 years old. People, they don't see them too much, right? So they're always interested in it, and I show them around, and that's always fun. The bad part is I have broken my car a bunch out in these track days. I've actually ripped the shifter in half. You know, the there's the main pin that your shifter pivots on to go up and down. Well, I was downshifting and I sheared that pin right off of the lower part of the arm there. So I couldn't even shift anymore. So luckily I was still in a gear and I was able to limp my way back to the pits, but that was interesting. Yeah, and I've had one of the axles explode. The CV joint broke free and made a big mess. Grease got all over the place. So that was pretty fun. I've had the car overheat. Turns out that was a bad thermostat housing cap. It was the seal on it was rotted and it wasn't holding pressure anymore. So it kept blowing coolant out and overheating the engine. So I ended my track day early on that one. And then, of course, when I blew up the engine on my last track day I did, that probably wasn't so good. Yeah. So I ended up getting I have a car trailer now, which I didn't have before, and it seems now that I have this trailer to haul my car back and forth to these track days, I've been breaking it a lot more often because before that, like I never had any problems with the car at all. So for some reason, as soon as I got that trailer, I keep breaking it. So now I have a way to get it home. So I guess that's good.
Maybe you're driving it harder now that you know it's not your only way home.
Yeah, yeah, actually that's probably what it is too. I probably don't care as much. And then I put a winch on it so I can get it pulled up onto the trailer now. Because before that I had to have a few people help me push it back up on the trailer. So
Right. Well, John, what has been the most challenging part of making this big 3000 GT build? You know, how do you make it built for track days?
I would say that the most challenging part so far has been actually tuning the engine, which is why I ended up hiring that part of it out. That was getting a little bit frustrating for me, figuring that part out. So hopefully all that's behind me now. But the other part is just keeping it reliable. Like I said, taking it on a track is really hard on these cars. Well, I think any car. So I think I've got it to the point where it should be reliable now, but again, I gotta, we'll see what happens on the next time I take it out on the track, see if I've gotten through all the reliability issues. But I've been trying to pick parts too that are, they're good parts or name brand parts. So I don't have these kind of issues. I'm trying not to cheap out everywhere on that stuff. The turbo I have is actually a cheaper turbo, unfortunately, but I did that because I wanted to learn about turbo engines and I didn't want to spend a lot of money, potentially destroying something like a really expensive turbo. So, I that one is cheaper. So I'm probably going to keep that one for a couple of years and then get rid of it eventually because I'm sure it's going to wear out pretty fast. So, but everything else, I'm trying to do things and design things to make it more reliable. I've the electrical system in the car, I've redid that whole thing. I've moved the fuse box from the engine compartment into the cabin now, and I've reworked the whole chassis harness in the front, as well as I have a whole new engine harness. I made that whole thing from scratch as well. So it's based on like a motorsport spec, I would say. It's got, I'm using Amphenol mil spec connectors on there, Raychem heat shrink tubing, um, all the any splices are actually spliced with a real, like mil compliant type of splice. I'm not using those quick crimp type joints anywhere. Nothing soldered. So, and that whole harness, both of those harnesses are hermetically sealed, so I don't have to worry about any moisture or anything like that getting into them as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all about trying to design this system to be as reliable as possible. But I'm sure I'll find the next weakness someplace.
Right. The more you dig, the more weak spots you find, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. I mean, you got to get it out there and test it, and then something breaks or doesn't go the way you expect it to go, then you got to adapt and change it up.
Okay. In doing all this, John, the stuff that you were just talking about, have you had any surprises? Strengths or weaknesses in this setup overall?
Um, I'm yeah, I think I'm surprised at how well all the Mitsubishi parts all fit together. It's pretty interesting how you can interchange these parts from Eclipses and 3000 GTs. So I've got some like hybrid parts bin now going on my car. But it was fun, researching all that and trying to figure out which parts do go together and which ones, you can take and modify. And that was kind of a fun part of the journey as well. Um, I think my biggest weakness so far, though, is still the fact that it's front wheel drive. So everybody that pulls up to me asks me if it's all wheel drive, and sadly, I have to tell them no. So, but one day I'll probably end up changing that out as well.
Yeah, I don't know how easy it is on the 3000 GTs if it's as simple as the Eclipses. That's
Um,
something to look into, huh?
well, the rear subframe on a 3000 GT uses different mounting points. The two front ones are different. So you can either cut those off of a VR4 shell, and then you can weld them onto this car. And the same with the rear shock towers. They're actually at a different angle, so but you can cut those out and weld different shock towers in. Or you could make your own, custom rear subframe and not have to worry about some of those things. So it's a bit of fabrication, but I don't think it's not impossible. There's been a few people that have done that as well. So I'm not afraid to do that kind of work. So it's just a time and money kind of a thing is why I haven't gone down that road just yet.
For sure. And you're still having fun, so there's no reason to start cutting everything up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do want to actually drive it around and have fun with it here. So before I gotta go cut it all back up again.
Well, John, early on we talked about the tuning. How do you approach the tuning, not just of the engine, but also, the tuning of the suspension for the different track layouts and even changing conditions? So what's your approach for tweaking the tuning?
Well, because it's front wheel drive, I really try to eliminate the understeer. So the rear end, I've stiffened it up with the sway bar and the bushings, the poly bushings, and that to try to get the back end to rotate more. And then the on the coilovers, I'll soften those up a little bit then. So it's all about trying to figure out how to get the back end to rotate. So I'm eliminating the understeer. And surprisingly, you can actually uh, get your car to oversteer, these front wheel drive cars to oversteer too easy as well. So it's a matter of, playing with the tire pressures and the rebound on the coilovers to kind of find that sweet spot, depending on what the track is. So, that's what I'll end up playing with when I go out on the track. So, and then I put a big rear wing on it as well to help stabilize the rear end too. And then I on the front end I put a air dam. But I'm actually gonna probably the next thing I'm gonna do is actually put a real splitter on there to get some more downforce too to help it keep more stable and flat in the corners.
Okay. Well, John, besides the, way down the future all-wheel drive swap, do you have any other modifications that you're still planning to make besides that splitter that you just talked about?
I'll probably end up switching to E85 at some point. The fuel lines are still have still rubber on the inside of them. They're all the whole fuel system is upgraded. It just doesn't have the proper lining in them to have E85. So I have to change all that out, but I'll probably do that eventually because that's the limitation right now with horsepower in the car is the fact that I'm running pump gas on it. So there's only so much, that I could get out of it before it starts detonating more. So that'll probably be the next thing I end up doing. And then I'm sure the next weakest link is going to be the transmission. I'm just kind of waiting for that to destroy itself since I'm running so much more horsepower through it over stock. So that's probably not long for this world. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it is holding up, so it's used. That was the transmission from that $500 engine I bought. But I took the whole transmission apart to swap out the differential and all the gears and everything, and it looked good. There's no chipped teeth or anything like that. There wasn't a pile of metal shavings in it. So I mean, it was a really good looking internals on that transmission. So I think it'll last for a little while, but I'm just not sure how much, what the life expectancy of it is when you're running a lot more horsepower through it. But if that thing goes, I'll end up taking it to a place like Revenge Performance and have them rebuild it and, put some more robust internals in there so I don't have that happen again.
Can't go wrong with those guys.
Yep.
Well, John, you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but how has the overall car and or 3000 GT community responded to this, unique build?
Yeah, everybody likes it. I mean, I get like really good feedback on it. This being, one of them, getting tied in with you to talk about it, is a first for me. And yeah, like I said, every time I take it out, people give me a thumbs up. They, at these track days or wherever, people stop and they want to talk about it and look at it, and it's really fun. I enjoy that part of it a lot.
So, John, obviously you're into autocross and road course racing. Would you say that there's in something that influenced you or someone that influenced you in motorsports?
I don't know. I always liked it before I had my driver's license. I think I told my dad I wanted to be a race car driver when I grew up. So for some reason, I was just always into motorsports. And now I follow the IMSA racing series quite a bit. I really like doing that, going to see those races. Since I'm in Michigan, they always have an IMSA racing event at the Detroit Grand Prix. So I go do that now every year to watch those cars driving around, meet the drivers. I've got actually an IMSA checkered flag that is filled with signatures from all the drivers from that series. So that part's pretty fun as well. But I like watching that stuff, and I have this car sitting out in my barn, and now I want that thing to be a race car too. So
I can definitely understand that.
yep.
I think, especially with engineering background, I think we've seen time after time on here that people with engineering backgrounds tend to be into motorsports.
Yeah, I think definitely. Yeah, I find that at work too. A lot of people are into cars and talk about those kinds of things and what they want to do to theirs, and so that's a lot of fun too, being able to talk about that with other people.
Well, John, do you have any advice to someone who's maybe looking to build something similar? Because, in my mind, I imagine there's a lot of people out there with an SL who are, kind of frustrated that they uh, can't or maybe, don't have the means to purchase a VR4 and they just want to have some more fun with their car. Um, Maybe some advice to encourage them to, go out there and race it anyways.
Yeah, I would if you're going to do this swap, I would say find a good engine, good running engine, hopefully one with low miles or maybe one that got rebuilt already. And just do a basic swap at first. Use the DSM ECU. Get DSM link. Don't go what I did and change out the whole harness and all that stuff. I was going to do that initially, but I wasn't coming across engines. I guess I got a little impatient, and went down the road that I went down. But I think that's an easy way to get into it. I think you can get into it for pretty cheap doing it that way. If you can find something running, then you can swap it out pretty easily. It really, I don't think it was a really difficult engine swap at all. There's Eric Englert, I think his last name is. He sells motor mounts to do the swap. So that's all you really need is those parts actually, and the rest of it is just DSM parts that you're putting in there. But it drops right into the engine bay without any issues. So that part was good. And then I think if you're gonna go with some kind of aftermarket ECU, I either if you're not gonna do the DSM link, then go with something like a Haltech. I didn't realize everybody moved away from the Megasquirt ECUs and are now like running Haltechs and Link ECUs. That seems to be really popular. If I had a Haltech in the car, then there's a couple of people close to me that could have, done a actual dyno tune and got the car all sorted. So that's my, looking back on it, kind of mistakes I made along the way. I probably would have picked a different ECU from the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of times it's, you kind of want to do the buy once, cry once, but,
Right.
you know, a lot of times simpler is better.
Yeah, and the Megasquirt is a good computer. Don't get me wrong. It does everything I need it to do. Um, and it was a little cheaper than the Haltex, obviously. So I don't know. I went with that route. They've been around for a really long time. There's still support for them. They're still coming out with new models. So I figured, well, why not, right? And turns out all these tuners have moved away from them. So at least in my area, anyways.
Yeah, for sure. Megasquirt and AEM. It's almost impossible to find a tuner nowadays. Luckily, you came across Desmond. Otherwise, you might be still looking for something.
Yeah, that was interesting with him. Just to go off on a little tangent here, is his YouTube channel just popped up on my feed one day, and I started watching a few of his things, and I really liked how he explained how he did the tuning, and talked to the customers and told them what they should do, as improvements in the future, and his approach to tuning it. Like I really liked it, and I went on his website and I discovered, he can do remote tuning, and then I discovered he can actually tune the Megasquirt ECUs. So I'm like, hey, dropped him a line, made a connection with him, and he remote tuned my car. So it was worked out really good.
Don't get better than that.
Yeah.
Well, John, let's say tomorrow you hit the Michigan lottery.
Yeah.
Budget's no longer a concern. What's the dream build with this car look like?
Well, I would probably take the 6-point roll bar out and do a full cage with it, and then convert it to rear wheel drive, get a sequential transmission, and then switch everything over to Haltech. And then I think I would be happy after that.
Understandable.
Yep.
So, John, where can people find and follow you on social media so they can see some more of this 4G63 3000 GT?
So I've documented the whole thing on my Instagram page from, like there's a few videos and photos at track days, and then I go through the whole process of pulling the old engine out, sticking the new one in, getting all these parts built, and evolving it over time. It's been like 3 years, I think, in the making because of time and money. I just couldn't get at it all at once. But you can peruse through there and check everything out. My Instagram um, name is Juko 3000 GT. It's JUKO 3000 GT. So you can find me there, or just look me up, John Lentz. You can also find me. Take you to the same place.
Perfect. And then finally, John, at the end, I give people a chance to give a thanks or a shout out to anybody who's helped them get their car together, get themselves together. Is there anybody that you want to give a thanks or a shout out to?
Well, of course, Desmond, for helping me out with tuning, Busher Racing. Those guys were really cool. I actually drove to their shop to meet them when got my engine rebuilt. Those are some pretty cool guys down there. Otherwise, it's, the whole community, the whole 3000 GT stealth community. There's just so much good information out there on their forums and on their Facebook pages. Same with the DSM community. I mean, there's just decades of information out there, and it's a really good place to learn about these cars and see what people have done before you, and either do with exactly what they've done or improve upon it. But without any of all that, this entire community, with these Mitsubishi cars, I definitely wouldn't have gotten where I was without all that.
Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and tell your story and tell the story of your awesome 3000 GT. Can't wait to hopefully see it in person, at some point. And definitely, I need to check this thing out.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is a really cool, fun opportunity having me on this podcast. I'm glad I could talk about it.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.